This PSA was brought to you by the Peter G Show.
You may have second thoughts after the show.
Don't drink the Foster. We're really talented. We should get Oscars.
Just pick out a car, for Christ's sake.
No, hi, my name is Peter.
Yeah, I want.
Here's good.
Yeah.
Madam Perry.
I need to get back in the genie bottle.
Louis from Pennsylvania, you're on. He likes it. It's showtime.
Peter G Show, Peter G Show, divorced dad, single dad, divorced dad, single dad, Peter G Show.
It's showtime. Wednesday, May the 4th. And yes, may the 4th be with you. Don't mention it. It's a beautiful, beautiful spring day here in sunny Southern California. And I hope that everybody's having a beautiful day. I know life is not easy. And I can honestly tell you, when I sit at this desk and I get to be here, it is really great to be here. My name's Peter G. You're watching Life with Peter G, the Peter G Show. There is a lot going on in the month of May. A lot. Just this week alone, I'm going to run down a couple of things of what's going on. But what's going on, you ask? Let's start with what's going on right here on the right here and now, okay? Tonight, I am pleased to tell you that I am going to have Dr. Jed Diamond, psychotherapist, author, men's health, mental and physical health. They're going to keep telling me to cut the show off because it's going to be a plethora of questions tonight. And I'm sure that it's going to be something for you, men and women. And usually when I have shows like this, it always gets me after the show. It's like, God, I wish I would have asked him this, or I wish I would have asked him that. But don't worry, because you'll know how to get a hold of him and how to get onto his website. But this man's got over 50 years of experience, countless books, some clever titles too. A couple of them just really get me. But this is something we don't talk about a lot. And, we talk about mental health in general, but we're going to focus on men and for the women as well, because again, I said it, last week, women, you have to live with us, and not always easy, and vice versa. But as you get older, you tend to learn things, hopefully. And I'm tending to learning things, and this is why I wanted to bring him on this show, and I'm really pleased that he had the time to give us. So tonight, he's going to be on coming up in a few, Dr. Jed Diamond, and we're going to open up that can of worms and see what's in store. But I guarantee you'll know more about things than before you picked up on this show, and so that's a good thing. Okay, so tomorrow, May the 5th, Cinco de Mayo. For those of you who've watched the shows in years gone by, we used to have fun on Cinco de Mayo shows. I mean, even if it wasn't Cinco de Mayo, we would call Jose. This is when we'd make phone calls and we'd have like Mexican joke offs, and every once in a while you got to have fun. I mean, I'm serious as a heart attack at times, but I'm really good at loving to goof off. I mean, if you haven't picked up on that, but give me a budget and I'm the king of fun. But again, I like to also bring in, some seriousness, some information. And at the end of the day, when we walk away from this show at night saying, you know what, good show, regardless of the topic. I can, everybody wants a different topic, and whose buttons do you push per topic? But all I know is that everything works out in the long run, and we're pretty well rounded. So that's May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. I want to wish everybody a happy Cinco de Mayo ahead of time before I forget. And if anybody's wondering when I'm going to bring Pepsi on, the answer is I'm not going to be bringing Pepsi on tonight. So consider that a curse or a blessing, any way you want to put it, because on May the 6th, it's Pepsi's birthday, and he's been traveling, and he was good enough to help us make it work. And while he was on the road and he was on the show last week, and we did have fun last week, we did nothing but nonsense. But again, feeds the soul. I'd rather laugh any day than cry. But he's not going to be on this week. I told him just to don't worry about it, just come back alive, and that'd be good. But it's his birthday, Thursday, May the 6th, so he's off. He's been off. I don't know if that boy's ever been on, but he's off. And then comes, hey, Pete, look, all my people starting to write in. Hey, stick around. This is good stuff for you men. I promise. You'll thank me later. But anyway, Sunday. We used to do the shows on Sundays up until this past year. And it was kind of cool in a way because there's a lot of holidays on Sundays and we got to share them on that day. But won't be here on Sunday. And but Sunday's Mother's Day. And for those of you who have mothers, take advantage of it. That's all I can tell you. I know not everybody's got the peachy life and greatest upbringings, but if you're fortunate enough to have some type of love in your life with your parents, I suggest you make the best of it every day, not only on Mother's Day or Father's Day, but life is short, and when they're gone, and you can't take it back. So, Mother's Day. I used to write through my years of growing up, probably had about a dozen older women, old ladies that were in my mother's group and even older than my mother. And they used to, I grew up in a time when my mother, my parents used to go and there was family connections. There was a lot more family and friends and you visited people. And so there was a lot of women in my life when I was growing up as a child, old ladies, and they used to fuss over me all the time. And as I got older, I finally tended to understand and I would send probably about a dozen Mother's Day cards out. This was after I'm probably 25, finally kicked in. The brain takes time to develop, especially mine. But I used to send a Mother's Day card and Easter cards and little things like that not a big deal, but things you didn't think of. You were too busy running around as a kid, and I got to tell you now, days gone by, I'm down to one Mother's Day card to somebody that's still special to me that's around. And again, one day it's all over. So enjoy, take advantage of the people that give to you, that helped shape you and that fussed over you. Not everybody has that, but if you're lucky enough, maybe you can do that. You give back. Anyway, okay. One more thing, and then we're going to bring Jed on next week. Where is she? May 11th, Wednesday, May 11th. Psychic medium Amy Bileski. When I tell you how happy I am to have this woman on, she's going to be on because she's almost impossible to get to. She's got almost 3 million followers on TikTok. Some people can poo-poo and go, I don't believe in this stuff. I've been doing this frequently, almost once a month with psychics. But when I tell you this woman, her philosophy and her, she doesn't guess and start asking you questions. She's telling you things, especially speaking to the deceased. And I don't know. You judge for yourself. I'm going to interview her because she has so much to give. And she has so much to give philosophically about spirit and death and life and all that. And Amy Bileski going to be on Wednesday, May the 11th, coming up. And you're not going to want to miss that either. This is going to be a big month this month. The week after that, it's going to be Tyrus, the NWA world-renowned wrestling champion. And he's also on the Gutfeld show, Fox News contributor. This guy's got a new book out. He's amazing. He's got a story to tell. And he's going to be on this show. So I'm really pleased. But let's go 1 week at a time. Right now, we're in the here and now, and Jed Diamond's going to be on. And then we're moving next week to Amy Bileski. You'll know more about it. But I would be tuning in all month and every Wednesday if I were you. But I'm partial. Anyway. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to bring on my special guest tonight. I'm pleased to bring on also from the West Coast, the northern West Coast of California, Mr. or Mr. Doctor. See, I forgot to ask him what's his preference, but I've been calling him on the show here, Dr. Jed Diamond. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Good to be with you.
Yeah, I forgot to ask you when we last spoke. You prefer Dr. Jed or Mr. Diamond? How do you?
Whatever works. I have a doctorate in psychology and international health, and I'm a Mister. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. So anything that connects us is good for me.
Okay, well, I think you've earned the degree, especially with your years of experience. So I'm going to call you Jed. But the thing is, you are Dr. Jed Diamond, and because again, psychotherapy, that's a deep. I have a psychotherapist doctor friend of mine over here in Ventura, California, and I mean, and he's kind of witty and he's pretty funny too. But it's a deep subject. I mean, that's diving really deep into the psyche.
We all live there. We all got psyches. We all got parts of ourselves that are mysterious, that are difficult sometimes to understand. And part of, I think, what we're all here is on a journey to know ourselves better, to be better people, to connect more deeply with those that we love, and to do a little good in the world while we're here.
Gotcha. The thing is, let me just go down a couple of things, and then I'm going to ask you to reiterate and make it even better for me. But I mean, you've been in you've been in the business over 50 years. You're a licensed psychotherapist. You're an author with I've lost count. You've got a lot of books, at least a dozen books out, correct?
Yeah, 16 books so far.
16 books. You're married. You're a father. You're a grandfather. What am I forgetting?
I'm a great grandfather.
Oh,
we
okay.
want to add to the children in the world. We have 2 great grandchildren, my wife and I.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I know a lot about life and relationships, and still learning, like we all are, how to love more deeply and how to do it better.
Gotcha. But just briefly, can you just give everybody for what I'm missing, just a brief synopsis of like who you are, what you do, what you've been doing, and how you do it?
Well, let me start by just kind of telling you how I got started doing this work. It really started November 21st, 1969, and my wife was going through labor with our first child, and I knew at the time that this was at a time where they didn't want fathers in the delivery room. They're afraid we'd pass out. So when it came time for my wife to go into the delivery room, they told me, Mr. Diamond, it's time for you to go to the waiting room, and we'll call you, when the blessed event happens. And I started down the hallway to the waiting room, and I couldn't go through the door. I felt some calling. My unborn child, it felt like, was calling to me saying, I don't want a waiting room father. I want you here with us. And so I turned around, went back down the hallway into the delivery room. And shortly after that, our son was born. And I made a vow to him at the time that I would be a different kind of father than my father was able to be for me, and to do everything I could to create a world where fathers were fully involved with their children throughout their lives. And so since that time, I've been doing everything I could to create that world, to be able to help people, whether it's fathers to be, mothers who are, wanting to have better relationships in their lives, to how to do it better. And I've learned a lot along the way, and have been sharing what I've learned through my books and through my counseling sessions and through the teaching and training that I do.
Okay, because I mean, even writing a book, because this is something that I'm been procrastinating on terribly, but yet I know it's in the cards. You've written 16 books, and they're all specialized in this subject matter. Now, I mean, you've dedicated your life to this. You funneled it down. You're not just, I'll talk to anybody who's having psychological problems. You're really focusing on men. Although it involves women, you're still, you're focused on men, correct?
I do, because of one simple truth about men. We know from studies from all over the world that men as a group live sicker and die sooner than women. And that's a tragedy for men. We want to live a full life, but it's also a tragedy for women. How many of us know of fathers that have died too soon and left women without a husband, or children that lost their father, sometimes through death, sometimes through divorce, sometimes separation. But part of, I think, what we all need and want, and why I'm dedicated to men's health, is because it has such an impact on everyone. One of the things I hear most from women is, help me deal with the man in my life. He's angry, he's irritable, he's depressed, he's having problems with relationship, he's not present in the way that I want him to be. So part of helping men helps everybody. And being a guy, I want to live as healthy and happy as I can. I want my sons to be able to do that for themselves, and also, as you point out, for the women that we live with and love. So that's what I've been doing. That's the dedication I've got in the world that I work in, and I try to learn more every day and share what I know with those that are interested.
Well, you've been doing it a long time, and the thing, I have a few questions, and we'll go specific. I mean, because you deal with not only the psychological help, but the physical help of men too, correct?
Exactly. I was in medical school before I went into social work, so I have a background in healing that includes the physical, the emotional, the relational, and all aspects. And so I'm fairly multifaceted, and I've been able to be doing this for quite a while.
Gotcha. So one question that I've had in general, since you've been doing this for so long, mental health wise with males, what do you think is the biggest tragedy or problem or issue that goes on within most men, period, mentally?
Well, I'd say the biggest problem that I see is that men tend to isolate, particularly as we get older. So it happens that if you think back of your younger years, I think about mine, that often had very close male friends when I was a little kid. When I was 10 or 12 years old, I had a lot of buddies. But then when I got into adolescence, there was a lot of competition. You wanted to be the one that stood out from the crowd. And so there was often more conflict between the friends that I had, and I would lose friends over time. And then you get to a place where you settle down, you have a family, and often we don't have time for our friends because we're busy making a living, we're busy with family, we're busy just kind of getting by. And over the years, we become more isolated. We become more separate. We become more focused maybe just on one or two relationships. And over time, what I see as a major problem for males is loneliness. And not just the feeling of being alone, but that feeling of not having close friends, close confidants that we really can talk about what's really going on with us, to talk about the hurts that we feel, the conflicts that we have. And it's a tragedy because the result of that is that we have much higher rates of suicide than women, and it increases as we get older. And we have a lot higher rates of addictions, of acting out, anger behavior, violence, and so on. But at the core, I think it's isolation. and disconnection that I see more commonly in men than in women.
But I mean, if they isolate, they're creating their own isolation. I mean, I can go by my own example of knowing when you get married. I mean, when you go to school, I'm telling my daughter this. She's 16, and because your best friend was your best friend because they happen to be there at that time. And as you go, people change, things change, and there's new friends. And not that they weren't good friends, but at the moment, that's what was considered to be your best friend. As you get older, you get married, you do kind of separate because you get busy with other things, but that doesn't mean you can't recreate. If I want to pick up the phone and call somebody, even though I haven't spoken to somebody in 3 or 4 months, I can do that, and it's just like we left off. So I don't understand. I mean, I understand because got married and then we got busy, and it was that new little tribe. But to get to the point to where it's screwing with your head and you're getting into depression and things like that, two different things, no?
Well, I think that if you look at your life, and I look, I've seen over the years, I've probably seen in counseling maybe 25 or 30,000 people. And when I speak to large groups, I'll often ask, mixed group, men and women, how many of you have more than 5 close friends? And by close friends, I mean not just people you hang out with, but ones that you really confide in, that you can talk about the hurts that you have, the emotional ups and downs. And often you'll see with the women, the majority of the women in the audience will raise their hand. Yeah, I've got 5 close friends or more. When you ask the men, often they will say maybe 1 or 2, or maybe only 1. Maybe only my wife is my closest friend, but I really don't have deep, close friends with males. So that's not everybody. Some guys like you maybe have close friends. I've had to develop them over the years because it was true for me as I got more into my work. I tended to isolate. I had more what we call working friends, guys that I hung out with that were work related or sports related that I played, basketball with or I played football with. But, when I was really up against it or I was really hurting, often I didn't have anybody that I could talk to. That's a symptom, I think, that is fairly prominent in our society with men that are not as close to intimate contact with other guys as they really hunger to and want to and need to.
See, it baffles me. It really does, because I don't know, maybe I'm more fortunate that I'm more open and still keep those relationships. But I've had people that I've known people, unfortunately, that are not here anymore who've committed suicide.
Yeah.
And they were the life. I mean, they were social. They played music on the weekends, and they were married, and everything seemed good. But the depression or things like these little things that go on, it was beyond. Like you're just dumbfounded when you find out so and so just committed suicide. I mean, and these bouts with depression, and I don't understand it because. When you're looking at that person from the outside, I mean, he's out and about and everybody knows him, and and then he goes home to his family, but he comes back out and does his thing, and I don't get it.
Well, that's part of the problem is that, I'll give you an example, a personal example. My father was one of those guys who was the life of the party. He was actually an actor in New York, very successful actor, and came to California to break into the television industry. And he was well known, well liked, and yet he became increasingly depressed when he couldn't make a living. He was having a hard time finding work and became increasingly turned inward, became more irritable and angry. I remember that as a child. And then one day when I was 5 years old, I found out, I got a call from school. My I was just in preschool and kindergarten, and I got a call that mother to pick me up, and came, and it turned out my father was in the hospital, and I didn't know why or what had happened. I assumed he had gotten hurt or. What I learned was that he had taken an overdose of sleeping pills and was committed to a mental hospital. And what I came to learn over some time, when I found journals that he had written, this was after I was an adult, I began to understand that he had this deep feeling of sadness, of shame, that he couldn't find work, that he felt that he was a failure, and he had nobody to talk to. Now, from the outside, everybody would have said exactly what you said of him. He was popular, he was successful, he had a wife, he had a family, he had a new son, and yet for him, because he couldn't find work, and many men are in that situation who have lost their jobs or have not been able to be as successful as they wanted, and have nobody to talk to, feel isolated, and then in desperation do things as you described. We know the suicide rate is very high for men in many different industries, including actors, and we know many actors and many people in the entertainment industry who go, what happened to that person? Robin Williams, many people that we would go, no, how could that be? Well, what I know as a therapist, because I talk to the people, obviously the ones that die I don't talk to, but I talk to their families. I'm able, fortunately, to be talking to men who don't make that tragic step, but reach out, or their wives call me, or family members call before they get to that point. But part of the problem is exactly what you described. People don't know. They are surprised. They don't realize how many men are walking around feeling on the outside, wearing the mask of the healthy, happy family guy, but deep inside feel cut off, sad, depressed, but never talk about it.
Wow. See, I mean, depression. I mean, the other day we heard that one of the judge, the mother, she committed suicide from depression. I mean, depression is a tough. That's something that you don't even know. I mean, when that switch goes off, I guess there's no changing what happens. And I've been told by people that I'm sure that a lot of people that have committed suicide, that if they could take it back, they would, because they were just in that moment, and that moment was heavier than their normal reality, and that just for that moment. But yet it passes, and then they get back into their own swing until its ugly head rears itself around again. I mean, have you dealt with a lot of these people that are just severe depression?
Well, I have. It's part of what I do every day. I see clients every day, and one of the things that is one of the myths that I want to dispel for anybody who's in this state of being is that it's a momentary thing. You just are fine 1 minute, and then something comes over you and you become, quote, depressed, and then you snap. What I've come to know is it's not a quick event. It's a long process that develops over time. I saw this with my father. And quite frankly, I'll be honest, I went through depression myself, where I increasingly felt disconnected, and I felt overwhelmed by the stresses of life, and I didn't know what to do. And the kinds of treatments that were available were not helping. And so it's a long process that develops. There are warning signs. There are predictors that we know that we can help people recognize depression before it gets to the point where people are checking out. But it isn't just you snap all of a sudden, and before that you were fine. You weren't fine. People just didn't know the sadness that was going on, or the pushing the sadness away by drinking or staying so busy in work you don't have to deal with the deep feelings of loss or hurt or sadness that are inside.
Wow. Yeah. Again, a lot of people, you'd be surprised and go, wow, I just never would have thought. But by then it's too late. And on how treatable, besides, fishing around on these heavy medications to straighten people out, which you may or may not, it could shift you to be even worse, especially if you mix with alcohol and things like that. I mean, how do you go about, when you finally see these signs? I mean, is it through therapy of talking or medication or both, or how do you do it?
Well, what I've learned over the years is there's many different approaches. Part of, I mentioned being, having a PhD in international health. And one of the things, probably because I had a family background of depression, I studied it. And one of the things I discovered was that the symptoms for depression in males are different from what we think of as depression in women. And the research at the time, this is about 15 years ago when I did my research for the PhD, was they assumed that women suffered from depression at twice the rate of males. And yet we know that males commit suicide at rates 3 to 18 times higher than females. And what I came to see was the reason wasn't because men are less depressed, but somehow commit suicide. The reason was we were missing the symptoms of depression in males because the kind of questions we were asking had to do with, are you feeling sad? Are you feeling, not happy with your life? When often the symptoms for male depression included anger, irritability, feeling of anger and blame, feeling of alcohol use, and I call it acting out our depression, where women tend to act it in their sadness. So I developed a new scale, and part of what I have on my website where I share with people is a more enlightened and a helpful scale for one, assessing depression in men so we find it sooner, and secondly, realizing that there are a whole lot of effective treatments that don't just involve either heavy medications or simply very expensive and very long-lasting talk therapy. There are also ways in which we can get more involved in how we change our diet can help. It's interestingly with depression, exercise can help. Getting, and this is the key, more connected in our social world, having more friends, having more activities that we are involved in volunteering and helping others. Probably what you do with your show and talking to people and engaging people are things that are preventive of depression. So when I see people clinically in my practice, there are many things that I recommend, all starting with what that particular person, I have a 50 question questionnaire that helps me tune in to what are the issues that they're dealing with. Where are the disconnections? For some, it's a disconnection between them and their love life, their partner, or they don't have a partner and they want one. Sometimes it's a disconnection with their work life. They're working at a job they don't care about, or they're feeling put down, or they're not connected in their work. For others, they're having problems in their sense of self. They feel ashamed. For others, there are problems with the feelings that come up because of the trauma that many of us grew up with, feeling that we grew up in families where there were absent fathers, or fathers that were disconnected, or fathers that were abusive. So we get at the core of what's causing the depression. And then we have ways that once we know what's causing it in each person's life, how to fix it. So that's what I do individually with clients that come to see me for help.
Gotcha. Let me give you a little example through life. I know somebody who recently, her husband retired, and ever since when he retired, their whole relationship changed,
Right.
and it didn't get better. And they were able to go and travel and do a lot of things, and unfortunately, to the point where he got miserable retiring. And I don't understand that either. Again, maybe because I'm just, really whacked out or whatever, and I always find something to keep me occupied. I'm easily amused or whatever, but I can't ever see myself getting bored with life because even just doing nothing is something. But yet, people, it changes their psyche, and it led to many problems with this with these people all over that. I mean, is that something pretty common?
It is. There's a couple of elements that happen uh, when we get older. So most people retire when they're 65 or whatever retirement. I'm not retired, and I'm 78, so I'm still working. I'm still active.
Yeah.
But one of the things that goes on when you retire is that you think you're going to now have the reward for all the years you worked, and you're going to have fun. But there's a couple of things that you don't realize. You mentioned one thing: the relationship changes. You think, now that me and my partner, I don't have to work so much, we'll be able to enjoy ourselves. But now often unresolved issues in the relationship that you didn't have to deal with because you were going off to work every day come in. And I'll have women tell me, it feels like I have another child in the house. He's underfoot. He doesn't have anything to do, and he's now, hanging around and just being, I won't use the word, but being one of those guys. So that's one problem they don't anticipate. The other is that we all need a purpose in life. The Japanese call it the ikigai, which means that thing that makes you want to get up in the morning. And we think that we can go on with life and not need a purpose. But often, as you point out, a guy who isn't working, who is retired, doesn't get something else to replace it. You just think we can enjoy life, but we need something that have a purpose and have a meaning, and we feel needed. And many people find that, they don't just sit home and twiddle their thumbs. They volunteer, or they get involved in other activities, or they start a second career, or they do something that is of service to a larger community, or they are more involved in their families. It's the ones that are surprised by the stresses of retirement that they didn't anticipate, how it changed their relationship, or how it changed the things that the structure of their lives that they had while they were working.
Wow. I want to shift gears because, unfortunately, like I said, I got many more questions for you, and not enough time. Physical health in men. Besides getting overweight, what do you see going on with men's physical health that leads to other problems, ailments? And
Probably
things?
the main thing that I see, with physical health is men don't move enough. We're built to move throughout our lives. If you think about, for 2 million years, our ancestors were hunter-gatherers. In order to eat, you had to walk and chase the food and kill it, and then bring it back to the camp to eat. Now we open up the freezer and take out a Pop-Tart or a frozen pizza or whatever. So we don't move like we used to. And I walk every day. It's part of what I do because I enjoy it, and it's part of how I stay healthy. And I can't tell you how many people I see, mostly men, to be honest, that are sitting on their porch, just sitting. And they'll wave at me, and we'll chat for a while. Say, hey man, you oughta, someday I'll come, and I ought to walk with you. I ought to get out more. I ought to move more. And so we don't. So physical activity is necessary as long as you live. If you stop moving, your body starts thinking you're ready to die, literally. And
Right.
so that's one big problem. Second big problem related to that is the modern American diet, MAD. Most guys don't eat well. And some of that's what we were taught. We eat more meat than we should. We know, and we're taught healthy diet, is mostly vegetable, not too much. And most of us eat too much of the wrong foods. So that's the second thing. But the main thing physically is that we don't have the social contact. So I walk with friends. I walk for connection. I plan meals that are not only alone sometimes, but with wife and family and social connections. They've shown that in the countries where we have centenarians that live 100 years or more, the keys in these long-lived countries are movement. So you get out and you move regularly, diet that is healthy, and relationships where we're engaged, and purpose. When you have those things, physically, you live longer, you live healthier, and you don't end up dying before your time.
Agreed. We don't always. I mean, I watch everything I eat. That's my problem. I watch everything and I eat it. but and I see this happening. I mean, we're not 20 anymore, and I'm watching my daughter. She's really getting into doing these these workout classes and things like that. And I go, yeah, but you're 16. And I go, we all did that when we were 16.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, I'm fairly fairly strong guy, and I'm going to have to work at it. I'm having to work at it, or I mean, because it's fading, and it's really sucks. I mean, it's depressing, but I'm not going to get depressed about it. But I mean, you got to face the music, and so now I'm seeing myself at this challenge. I don't have the lifestyle that I used to have when I had off. For some reason, I felt like I had all the time in the world to do all that stuff and a bunch of stupid stuff and the serious stuff, and now I don't have time to before you know it, it's waking up and going to bed. And I don't understand that theory, but I want to ask you a question here. Move on to a couple of your books, because I can't get to all of them, and that's kind of sad too. But My Distant Dad Struck a Bell.
Yeah.
Please, let everybody know, I mean, how that all came about and what that's about.
Well, yeah, I mentioned in kind of the introduction that my father, was basically out of my life from the time I was 5 years old. In his case, it was because he took an overdose of sleeping pills because he was depressed because he couldn't make a good living. But what I learned over the years was that the father wound, I call it, the title of the book, My Distant Dad, Healing the Family Father Wound, is that it's probably the most common and least understood and most destructive thing that people grow up with, whether they're male or female, is a father who is not emotionally present. And that can be because they're physically not there, or it can be because they're working too hard or too often and don't have time to really be with their families. And what happens is there is a wound that we don't even realize we have, that not only is there as we grow up missing a dad, but as an adult, we know that these losses that we have influence our physical health. People who had absent fathers have higher rates of cancer, higher rates of heart disease, higher rates of diabetes, things you wouldn't think are associated with lost fathers or growing up in a family where a parent was absent. But they tie to our physical and emotional health.
Wow. I mean, look, I growing up, again, my parents grew up through World War I as children and World War II as young adults. And I mean, my father worked. I mean, I don't think my father ever changed a diaper in his life, but he was still my father. He worked in the era when the wife can stay home and you still made a good living and could buy a house. But I mean, it all worked out. But I've talked to a lot of guys, especially nowadays, because it takes two incomes to try to survive. A lot of guys, and I didn't want to be that guy, and I suffered for it financially, but it paid off in the long run. But a lot of guys said, yeah, I was never there for my kids because I was too busy working. And I mean, it's a no-win situation. You know what I mean? You want to be there, but you got to work. And I mean, how do you survive it?
Well, I think part of the recognition you had, and I try to pass this on to guys, is that when our children are young, they need father involvement just as much as mother involvement. And yes, it's a bind for many of us of how do you balance work and family. And if we can, I think, as you did, you say to yourself, I'll sacrifice some of the extra money that I might have in order to be more present with my kids. And what we know is the kids, whether it's little kids or when you grow up, would have rather had their father be there more. Many don't say, I wish you had made more money when I was a kid. They would say, I wish you had been to my sports event, or had come to my school more often, or had been able to read to me at night or help me with my homework. And so I think more and more dads are recognizing that and are making choices about their work life that include more time with my children. And the science bears that out. The adult children who look back and say, I wish my father was more involved, bear that out.
I think a lot more modern day fathers are doing that. I mean, not every, but more so than back in the day.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I would do it all over again because I loved every second of it, not knowing what I was getting into, but once it finally hit, because I only have one, and when she came out, it was like a light just shifted my brain sideways, and nothing else mattered to me. And again, I paid for it dearly in a lot of ways, and that's why there's going to be a good book one of these days. But I don't have no regrets when it comes to raising her.
Yeah,
and
good for you.
Well, yeah, I'm one of maybe the luckier ones or whatever.
Yeah, you are, and she'll be better off for it, and you'll be better off. And children who grow up with absent dads, have more difficult relationship lives, and it in fact impacts their physical health as well as their emotional health and their relationship health. So many guys don't realize how important they are. They think that their money can be an added benefit that offsets the loss of their physical presence, but their physical presence means a lot. And I'm glad you know that. And I know many more men know that, but more still need to learn it.
You're absolutely right. And again, this show was derived from the experience of all that. And then again, most people know I'm divorced now. And the biggest thing for me was I had to shift my whole life and decisions made to be able to be a father now divorced, and a lot of sacrifice and career change, and me having to do things that I didn't want to do, but I didn't want to give up the little bit of, if you call 50-50, and I wanted to have every second. And I don't think a lot of guys realize I think some guys, you just don't know what you don't know until you know it. I mean, I don't think a lot of these people have bad intentions, like they don't want to, but they're just oblivious of it, thinking it's okay.
Right.
But I don't think
or they don't need me, or they'll get over it. And more of us need to tell the stories that you do, and that say, I sacrificed, but it was worth it. And I've worked out a way, even though I was divorced, to be there with my kids more. So I think when guys know how important they are and how much their physical presence means in the life of their children, we find ways to be there more actively than maybe we might have if we hadn't learned how important fathering is. The little saying I have in my book is that many of us grew up with a hole in our soul in the shape of our dads. And I think that
Wow.
that hole in the soul often doesn't get filled, or gets filled with food or alcohol or drugs or some unhealthy thing, that when you have that father presence, you don't have the hole that needs to be filled with unhealthy things.
Amen. Because I mean, we all make jokes about girls with daddy issues, or this and that, or at least and it's sad but true. And I don't know. I just made sure I said there ain't no way in hell, at least as far as I can do, that was ever going to be an issue when it came to this, because I only have, again, one, and it's I only have to do one thing right now. I mean, that's my biggest investment right there.
Yeah,
And
good for you.
well, I'm no saint. I mean, I'm far from perfect, but I try. I
Yeah.
try, and so far so good. I mean, anything. I believe that it's not only what I gave. I believe that I just got blessed with a soul that she's just cake. I mean, easier than most. Let's put it that way. And I talk about it a lot. And I'm not like, oh, lucky me, but it's a fact, because kids can drive you nuts too.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
Right.
they're kids, and they can grow up and be pain in the ass too. I mean, it all kind of goes in. Another question. I want to keep moving. God bless it. I knew we were going to run out of time. You got a book that's called 12 Rules for Good Men.
Right.
Seems pretty simple. 12 rules for good men. Can you kind of hit on a couple?
Yeah. The first rule is join a men's group. And again, it gets back to what men are built for. You think of our hunter-gatherer past, when we went out hunting together. We went out together with other guys, and you brought home dinner. Now we don't hunt together, but the need for not only physical connection, but emotional connection with guys you can actually talk to. I've been in a men's group that's been meeting regularly with the same guys. Some of us have passed on, but the same guys have been meeting together for 42 years. 42 years.
Yeah.
And my wife, who I've been married to for 41 years, says that she thinks one of the reasons we have such a good, healthy 41-year marriage is because I've been in a men's group for 42 years. So men need connection, and first rule is be in a men's group. Another rule that that is important is that we need to deal with the father wound. I mentioned that many of us, maybe most of us, have a father wound that we haven't dealt with. Another one is to be able to feel joyful about being male. I call it embracing, our masculine spirit. There's a lot of negativity in the world about what's wrong with guys, what's bad about guys. We'd be better off if we had less testosterone, or better off if we were more like women. Well, the truth is we need to be more like men, and more like the deep, good men that we are inside, rather than less like men. So what I teach men, and what we learn in the men's group that I'm in, and the men's groups that I advocate, is how to be good men and deep men, so women can be women, and we can have the joy of men and women coming together, not as unisex, but coming together as deeply gendered males and deeply gendered females. And that's something I think we need to honor more in our world. And so that's another rule that I advocate.
I think nowadays I pity the up and coming therapists and all that, with all these newly defined genders, until that all wears off, that whole craze. And again, I kind of look at the way I'm figuring, well, there's some people, the kids that needed to have their butts whooped a little bit, and we wouldn't have had this problem. But I think we've gotten away with too much, and everybody's gotten soft, and now we got all these crazy ideas just because we can.
Well, some ideas are good ideas, and some ideas, are not based on human nature. They're not based on, our evolutionary, or biological psyche. And so, we need to get deeper into what works, and what relationships work, and what we need, and what is essential about being the best people we can be, and the importance of really, for all of us on some degree, whether we have children or not, it's really our gifts to the next generation and what it means to be a good person, what it means to be a good father. And that means being good men, good people. And that's what we need support in, we need practice in, and we need to create a world that's more susceptible to that and more supportive of that.
I agree with you 100%. I do feel I've heard some studies and things. I mean, on the evolution of our generations. I mean, you know, my parents came from. You got the stories of walking 40 miles to get wheat to make bread during the wars and under German occupancy and things like that. And so tougher times built tougher people. And then the next generation didn't want that child to go through what they had to go through, so they got it easier. And then that, so things got so easy to where we've lost all grounding of, I just want to say, common sense in a lot of things, and everything's just gone to hell. And unfortunately, I think we're going to have to hit the wall before things come back around again, and that's kind of sad.
Well, in some way, you know, we've all been through this pandemic. It's one thing that unites everybody is that COVID came to visit us. And I think, for my understanding, it's kind of a wake-up call for humanity. You know, it's kind of saying things have been out of balance. We've been out of balance with nature. We've been out of balance with ourselves. We've been out of balance in our relationships with each other. We're in conflict, the good guys against the bad guys, us against them. You know, we need to really recognize that we are one people. We are a human community, and we are a human country that needs to come together and quit fighting ourselves and fighting each other. And that means getting back to some real basic things of how to live a good life. And that's part of what I think you're doing on your show. It's part of what I do with my writing, my books, my counseling, and what I try to put out in the world that maybe a few people can learn something from, and hopefully we can together create the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, as my colleague has said. Charles Eisenstein wrote a book with that title, which I think is lovely. We all want that more beautiful world.
Again, I think that you and your experience and your topic is something that I could probably do monthly. I mean, it's something that needs to be done, needs to be heard. That's the whole problem. It's like, yes, we're doing this show. Can I reach the people to get this message across? And that's my whole goal. And because, you know, they may stumble onto the show in the future, but the fact is that so long as they hear it, to possibly open up that door. And I've always led with this is with most people that think they're alone. And I beg to differ. And I want to say, you're not alone. No matter what kind of experience you think you have is the worst in the world, somebody else has already had it. And I'm willing to hopefully share it. And with guys like you, who can bring a bunch of light to this subject matter, because it's pretty detrimental. I mean, it's shaping the people around you, and not to mention the self-destruction within that person's self, and that's kind of sad.
Well, that's why I, have launched, I call it my moonshot mission for mankind. We've known that, as I said, men live sicker and die sooner, and that just helping men live fully healthy lives. Colleagues have done a study, said that if we could just help men live fully and live as long as women as a group live, we would do more good than curing cancer. And so this initiative, this moonshot mission, is really to help men on behalf of humanity. If men lived healthier and lived better, we would be happier. We would also come together as a people, I think, in ways that we haven't, and that it starts with healing. And that's what our moonshot mission is for. So I hope people, if you're engaged and this has stimulated you, come visit me, come see me on my website.
We're going to talk about how to get a hold of you. I got 2 more questions, and then we're going to talk
Sure.
about how people can find you, because we're now going into a little bit of overtime, but damn well worth it.
Good.
I want you just 2 questions, tips. Give me one really good, if you could come out with one really good mental health tip and one good physical health tip. I mean, we touched on it, but now I want you just like, pulling it out from all the many. I mean, there's a lot of things. What can you give for a good mental health tip and a good physical health tip?
Yeah, the mental health tip is a very simple one. Make relationships important to you. Make your relationships better. That could be relationships with yourself, but the important relationships are with others. Think of somebody you would like to be closer to. Could be your son, your daughter, your wife, your husband. Make relationships important. You do that, your mental health will improve. Physical are related. You can't separate physical health from relationship health. So physically, and I'll put these together, do something physically with others. And I think one of the best things you can do is walk together. Go on a walk with your wife or your daughter or your son or your best friend or one of your neighbors. And not only will you add to your emotional well-being, but you'll also feel better. Your physical health, the endorphins of the brain chemistry will get released and you'll feel better. So walk together. You'll get both together in one package.
I think, one big word here is just happiness. You need to be happy. I mean, because if you're happy and clap your hands. I mean, if you're taking yourself down, you don't want to do anything.
Right.
So,
Well,
I mean,
they go together. You get happier when you're doing something good with other people.
yeah, but see, that's again, it's a trick. It's a very slippery slope right there. For people who are having problems with that. I know some people that, they don't have a care in the world and life is good. And whether they're rich or poor, they're happy as hell. And that's the thing. It's all up here to help everything else, and easier said than done. Wow. Let's tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, how they can find you, how they can find all your work. And you have a ton of work through all the decades that you've put into it, and how they can, learn more about you and all the above.
Yeah, it's simple. I have a website like most people. It's a simple website. It's called Men Alive, menalive.com. And that's where I hang out. I get emails every day that I answer. I have books that people can find out about. I have programs you can do to improve your relationships, to help deal with anger, to help increase your connection to your lost father who you may never have known or you knew but would like to heal the hole that we feel inside. And I just interact with people. People write me every day and I write back. I'm a real person who actually interacts with people. So come visit me at Men Alive.
Amazing. And as it was said, somebody commented all this right before Mother's Day. So I don't think I could be able to give a better gift to my audience than a little bit of reality and common sense, that even though you think it's, sure, who doesn't know this, you'd be surprised. So I want to thank you. I mean, I hope that people do go to your website and check out what's going on with you, because again, when they go there, they're going to find out that your head starts spinning because you don't know where to look first. You've got a ton of books out there, and these books, are they specific? I mean, are they on your topics? This is the problem I'm having with you. I kind of wanted to go specific with something, but being that this is your first time on the show, and maybe I hope someday you'll come back on again, but I wanted to talk specific because it's a subject within itself. But you have a lot of different books, and where do you begin?
Well, one of the things you'll see when you come visit the site, there are 4 little videos that as you'll find out when you visit my site. I talk personally about the 4 major problems that I had to deal with, and that I think many men deal with. So they're little short videos that not only introduce you to the subject, so you can see which one. There's 4 major ones you'll be able to choose, and then you get a tip sheet that tells you, here, if you've got this problem, here's some things you can do about it. And then it introduces some of the other things. So they're very easily navigatable ways in which you can come visit, either with a specific question or to check a video out and say, oh, yeah, that's an area that I want to learn more about or want to deal with in my own life.
Wow. Okay. Well, again, I think that this hour was exceptionally informative. I'm speaking not only for myself, but from some of the comments that we're getting. And again, I appreciate you giving us the time here to come on and share your views, because knowledge is power, and we all know that. But sometimes a lot of people, they just have to have it told, and reading isn't the key, and just to be able to hear it, to look and watch and go, okay, I kind of get that, because some people are audible, some people are kinetic, and you definitely shedded some light, I think, on a subject that I think is invaluable. So,
well, thank you, Peter. It's good to be with you, and hope we can do it again sometime.
You'll be getting I'm going to give you a call or a text tomorrow, because after we get through, we're not really through, but and then I just wanted to touch base with you real quick after that at your convenience. But I truly do appreciate your time. I do. I know you got a lot going on, and life is busy, but you've done a good thing, and I thank you for it. So again, from all of us here, we thank you, and again, we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jed Diamond, right there. You can reach him on his website at menalive.com. Again, he's interactive. He's not just somebody who's going to come on and disappear. He's been around, and I have a feeling he's going to stick around for quite a long time. So, again, you have a good night, and I thank you for it. Okay. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Jed Diamond. I didn't even start to crack the can open of the amount of knowledge this man has. So I suggest you check him out if you're in need. I'm going to hope I can talk to him in the future and talk him into coming on every once in a while. The future will tell us, because again, I think this is a subject I've neglected. We talk about mental health in general, but sometimes you need to specialize. And when I get the opportunity, I just have to have the right people to do it. But I think that there was a very good evening of information. And again, I thank Dr. Jed Diamond for coming on and doing it. Again, folks, you can reach him at www.menalive.com. That's his website, and all kinds of information right there. We'll put it up. But the time has flown, folks, as always. And it's sad, because I can't believe how fast everything goes. But we got, and he says the Japanese word ikigai. Somebody's got to be doing something. So I guess I'm a icky guy. I don't like the sound of that, but that's what it means. That's what it means. Icky guy. Because I used to hear people say he's kind of an icky guy. So I guess it has two meanings. All right, listen, I love all of you for tuning in. Don't forget to share. You may know people who need this information, and I promise you that, you don't know how much good you could be doing. But Life of Peter G, the Peter G Show, every week right here. I want to remind you that next week, to me, it's important. And I think it's important to a lot of people. And you won't know until you know. But psychic medium Amy Bolesky, May 11th, Wednesday, May 11th, right here on this show. Top of the heap. I'm going to interview her more so, and I'm going to lead by example. I may open myself up for a few little things here, and whatever she says, she says. But I know there's a lot of people that some are skeptical of psychics, and I've been bringing them on through the month, one a month almost since February, only because I believe that there are people that are very talented and have special gifts. Some I equate it to musicians. You have all different levels of musicianship, but at the same time, they still play a certain instrument. And these psychics, not everybody. Amy says everybody has this ability, but it's to learn how to develop it. But she's top of the heap. the top of the top because she doesn't question anything. She's just going to tell you what's going on or tell me what's going on. And I want her to explain a lot about her life because she hasn't had an easy life either. And she's going to be on Wednesday, May 11th. I'd be here. And Wednesday, May 18th, Tyrus. He's got a book. Just Tyrus. I don't know, for those of you who don't know who Tyrus is, he's an NWA undefeated champion wrestler, but he's also on the Gutfeld show as a guest all the time. And he just came out with a book about his life, and it's real. And that's all I can tell you. The man doesn't hold back. He had a rough childhood. He had a beyond young mother that had him and a rough raising, and then went on to other things. But it was because of that, what's made him to who he is, and is getting more and more popular every day. And you got to have a lot of respect for that. But this is going to be a great month. But lastly, don't forget, tomorrow, Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody. And Thursday's Pepsi's birthday. I'm going to have to check in with him by Friday. I cross my fingers that everything is going to be okay, because I've got stories. And then most of all, for the mothers in your life and for the mothers and people everywhere, happy Mother's Day this coming Mother's Day. We'll talk about it next week too. But again, I hope you take the specialness. I don't believe in a lot of these holidays. Every day there's some national hot dog day, national get up and go to the bathroom day. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But there are certain occasions that are very special, and Sunday is one of them. And for those of you who still have others, I hope you realize what you've got, because again, I don't want you to be the one who doesn't realize it once they're gone. My name is Peter G. I appreciate everybody watching Life with Peter G, the Peter G Show right here. Every week, taking it to bigger, better, bigger, funner. But I want you to tune in every week, and you never know what we're going to get. I don't know what we're going to get. Even when we're screwing around, there's something good coming out of it. And I like to have a little bit of fun. But anyway, we'll see you next week, like clockwork, right here. God willing, I'll be here. I want you to be here too. And that's basically it. As always, I love you guys. Peace out.
Peter G Show, Peter G Show, Divorce Dad,